Hey, welcome back to another Portworx demo. This demo is going to be all about using the OpenStorage SDK, specifically the Python version of it. There's also a Go version of it to interact with our Portworx cluster using PX security. In the demo, we'll be using Okta as our OpenID issuer to provide users and roles to let us interact with the system. Let's get started. So here we have a terminal with some of the scripts that we provided in some of our other demos. We can use one of the old scripts to authenticate, to try and authenticate, but now that we're running PX security, we get an unauthenticated error here, which is expected. So now we have to look at how we're going to authenticate with our cluster now that we have that. So there's an endpoint which allows us to fetch a token. We have some parameters such as client ID, client secret, username and password, as well as the scopes for OpenID, profile, and an email that we have to include to request our token. Then we can go ahead and get our token back, which we can then use to send to Portworx to authorize us to create volumes. So after we do that, we can go ahead and create a volume using this script. It'll prompt us for some information, which we'll grab from our Okta dashboard here. This application will grab the client ID, and then we'll grab the client secret. And it'll prompt you for a user. In this case, I know this is an admin user, a system.admin user, which allows me to create volumes. So it'll go ahead, it'll grab a token, it'll retrieve the token, it'll ask you for a name of a volume as an example, and we'll just do demo volume Okta, and we'll say that our HA level is 3. Great. Now this should go ahead and succeed and pass along to our Portworx cluster, no problem, then create the volume. So we can go ahead and look at the actual Portworx cluster to verify that. And the first thing we need to do is use our token to interact with the cluster. So normally PXE is the Portworx CLI, and if you try to use it without a token, I'll give you an example here. You will get an error saying you have your token's not valid, or etc. So in this case, we're gonna export the token. There's also a way to do PXE context create, which allows you to also create a context with the token in it. So you don't have to set this environment variable for this demo. I'm just using that. So now that we have the token in there, we can go ahead and list our volumes. We can see the demo volume we just created, which is great. That means we authenticated without an issue. So now we're going to go to try and interact with the cluster using a different user. So in this case, my developer user has a system.view role, which is one of the 3 roles out of the box Portworx recognizes. And so if we go back to our program here and submit the same information, but instead authenticate using our developer user, if we try to create this volume in a very similar way, we'll just name it something else, foo, fine, and give it an arbitrary. You'll see that it create denied, permission denied, right? Access denied to the roles because we're only a system.view user. This allows us to lock down our application. So now, as a system.view role, I should be able to list volumes, right? And that's true as long as the volumes are my volumes or are shared with me in terms of a collaborator or group. So here you can see, I can see 1 volume, but before we had 3 volumes, including our new one, which doesn't match the ID that I just saw. So right now I can't list the volume because someone else created it, right? This other admin user created it. So now what we have to do is allow access to that user. So here's my token, which includes my ID for the developer user. And if we go plop this into jwt.io, you can get the subject here, which is the ID of the user. And so what we can do is add this as a read-only user, which is the :R there, to the volume. But first, I forgot the collaborator flag here. So we're adding a collaborator, the ID to the demo volume Okta. So successfully updated the ownership. Now I should be able to run that list request again and see that volume. So what I've done is authenticated as the admin user, and as an admin user, update the ownership to allow the developer to see this volume as read-only. So now I see 2 volumes, and that matches the demo volume Okta. So you could see how you can share and update ownership, read, write, those kind of things, or even admin to different kinds of resources. And so this is one example of interacting with Portworx and using Okta as your OIDC issuer, which there's various other options such as Auth 0 and many other ones that can tie into things like Active Directory or LDAP or socials. So it doesn't go much further in this demo, but stay tuned for a Kubernetes focused one. Thanks.